How's it going, guys? This is Ideas of Ice and Fire, and on today's live stream we're going to be talking about Victarion Greyjoy. We're going to go over the character history throughout the books, and I will also be reading and discussing his chapter from the Winds of Winter. I will also be showing you guys one of my theories for Moqorro and discussing it here. Later there will be more of a back and forth between you guys and me. So let's get started with the history of Victarion Greyjoy. During the days of Robert's rebellion, Victarion and his two brothers, Balon and Euron, who were his elder brothers, convinced their father to join Robert's rebellion. Their father actually died during the war, and Balon became king of the Iron Islands. After Robert's rebellion is over, Euron Greyjoy impregnates Victarion's wife, forcing Victarion to beat her to death in order to retain his honor. So Victarion's wife gets raped, and then Victarion beats her to death in order to retain his own honor. Yeah, it's a really messed up patriarchal society that they've got going on, especially in the Iron Islands. It's really messed up. Euron is forced into exile by Balon Greyjoy, and Victarion has this deep hatred for Euron ever since. Like, he hates him so much, and he maintains that hatred all the way up to when we see him next, which is in A Feast for Crows. After Balon Greyjoy dies, Victarion leaves a token force to defend Moqorro under the command of Ralph Kenning, and he returns to the Iron Islands with his fleet to decide on the succession of the next king of the Iron Islands. Victarion makes a claim to the Sea Stone Chair as Balon's brother, and as second in command, Victarion makes a strong claim at the King's Moot, but the crowd ultimately favors Euron. Despite his hatred for Euron, Victarion's obedient and dutiful nature keeps him following Euron's orders, although Victarion does deplore the cruelty that Euron displays towards the slain lord's women. Apparently oblivious to Victarion's hatred, Euron summons Victarion to a private meeting in Lord Hewitt's castle, and he asks him to find Daenerys Targaryen and deliver Euron's marriage proposal. The new king explains that Victarion will receive the Sea Stone Chair once Euron claims the Iron Throne. Victarion agrees, but secretly, he plans on courting Daenerys for himself. So, in A Dance with Dragons, Victarion's Iron Fleet of over 90 ships splits into 3 sections and sets for Meereen. With him aboard his ship, which is called the Iron Victory, is the Dusky Woman, a gift from Euron. She is comely, meaning she's beautiful, but she's mute. On the journey, Victarion loses nearly half of his ships, though he also gains some ships back by capturing and seizing several trading vessels and their cargo. So Victarion's hand was also wounded a while back, and it's continuing to hurt him, and he suspects that the maester that Euron sent is poisoning him. I will say here that I don't actually think the maester is poisoning him. I think that Euron is paranoid about the maester, and I also feel kind of bad for the maester because he apparently gets raped by the sailors on the ship, and he tells Victarion about it, and Victarion does not care. And then, Victarion just ends up killing him later on. So, later during the voyage, a red priest of R'hllor named Moqorro is discovered clinging to wreckage out at sea. The crew wants him killed, but Moqorro convinces Victarion to allow him to treat his wounded hand. Behind closed doors, Moqorro apparently uses some kind of crazy magic on Victarion, and when Victarion emerges from his cabin, his hand is like charred and blackened, and it totally doesn't hurt him anymore, and it's totally healed, and maybe even better than it was before. So Moqorro kind of has some similar powers to Melisandre. He can see the future and the flames, and he uses magic to aid Victarion on his quest. That's also the reason that the maester had to die, because Moqorro tells Victarion that blood sacrifice is needed in order to give, good winds for his ship. Moqorro also sees a vision in the flames that Daenerys has married his Dar, but Victarion doesn't care. He says she would not be the first woman to be made a widow, so he's basically saying, I'll kill him and then I will marry Daenerys. So Moqorro tells Victarion that in order to bind Daenerys' dragons to the Iron Captain's will using the dragon binder that Euron gave him, that he needs to bind the dragon binder with blood. Now, we will discuss more what that means later on, but what we know about the dragon binder is we know that it supposedly came from Valyria. We know that when you blow on it, your insides burn up from the inside out, so Victarion can't blow it himself. So now we move on to the Winds of Winter preview chapter that George R. Martin released a while ago that involves Victarion and the Dragonbinder.
The noble lady was a tub of a ship.
How's it going, guys? This is Ideas of Ice.
The noble ladies of the Green Lands. Her holds were huge, and Victarion packed them with armed men. With her would sail the other, lesser prizes that the Iron Fleet had taken on its long voyage to Slaver's Bay. A lubberly assortment of cogs, great cogs, carracks, and trading galleys salted here and there with fishing boats. It was a fleet both fat and feeble, promising much in the way of wool and wines and other trade goods, and little in the way of danger. Victarion gave the command of it to Wolf One Ear. "The slavers may shiver when they spy your sails rising from the sea," he told him, "but once they see you plain they will laugh at their fears. Traders and fishers, that's all you are. Any man can see that. Let them get as close as they like, but keep your men hidden below decks until you are ready. Then close and board them. Free the slaves and feed the slavers to the sea, but take the ships. We will have need of every hull to carry us back home." "Home," Wolf grinned. "The men are like the sound of that, Lord Captain. The ships first, then we break these Yunkish men. Aye." The Iron Victory was lashed alongside the noble lady, 2 ships bound tight with chains and grappling hooks, a ladder stretched between them. The great cog was much larger than the warship and sat higher in the water. All along the gunwales, the faces of the Ironborn peered down, watching as Victarion clapped One Ear on the shoulder and sent him clambering up the ladders. The sea was smooth and still. The sky was bright with stars. Wolf ordered the ladder drawn up, the chains cast off. The warship and the cog parted ways. In the distance, the rest of Victarion's famed fleet was raising sail. A ragged cheer went up from the crew of the Iron Victory, and it was answered in kind by the men of the noble lady. Victarion had given Wolf his best fighters. He envied them. They would be the first to strike a blow, the first to see the look of fear on the foeman's eyes. As he stood at the prow of the Iron Victory, watching One Ear's merchant ships vanish one by one into the west, the faces of his first foes he had ever slain came back to Victarion Greyjoy. He thought of his first ship, of his first woman. A restlessness was in him, a hunger for the dawn and the things this day would bring. Death or glory, I will drink my fill of both today. The sea stone chair should have been his when Balon died, but his brother Euron had stolen it from him, just as he had stolen his wife many years before. He stole her and he soiled her, but he left it for me to slay her. All that was done and gone now, though. Victarion would have his due at last. I have the horn, and soon I will have the woman, a woman lovelier than the wife he made me kill. "Captain," the voice belonged to Longwater Pike, "the oarsmen await your pleasure, 3 of them, and strong ones. Send them to my cabin. I want the priest as well." The oarsmen were all big. One was a boy, one a brute, and one a bastard's bastard. The boy had been rowing for less than a year, the brute for 20. They had names, but Victarion did not know them. One had come from Lamenton, and the other from Sparrow Hawk, one from Spider Kiss. He could not be expected to know the names of every thrall who had ever pulled an oar on the Iron Fleet. "Show them the horn," he commanded. When the 3 had been ushered into his cabin, Moqorro brought it forth. The dusky woman lifted up the lantern to give them all a look. In the shifting lantern light, the hellhorn seemed to writhe and turn in the priest's hands like a serpent fighting to escape. Moqorro was a man of monstrous size, big-bellied, broad-shouldered, towering, but even in his grasp, the horn looked huge. "My brother found this thing on Valyria," Victarion told the thralls. "Think how big the dragon must have been to bear 2 of these upon its head. Bigger than Vagar or Meraxes, bigger than Balerion the Black Dread." He took the horn from Moqorro and ran his palm along its curves. "At the King's Moot on Old Wyke, one of Euron's mute blew upon this horn. Some of you will remember. It was not a sound that any man who heard it will ever forget." "They say he died," the boy said. "Him who blew the horn." "Aye, the horn was smoking after. The mute had blisters on his lips, and the bird inked across his chest was bleeding. He died the next day. When they cut him open, his lungs were black." "The horn is cursed," said the bastard's bastards. "A dragon's horn from Valyria," said Victarion. "Aye, it's cursed. I never said it wasn't. He brushed his hand across one of the red gold bands, and the ancient glyph seemed to sing beneath his fingertips. For half a heartbeat, he wanted nothing so much as to sound the horn himself. Euron was a fool to give me this. It is a precious thing, and powerful. With this, I will win the sea stone chair and then the Iron Throne. With this, I will win the world. Clagon blew the horn thrice and died for it. He was as big as any of you, and strong as me. So strong that he could twist a man's head right off his shoulders with only his bare hands, and yet the horn killed him. Then it will kill us too then, said the boy. Victarion did not often forgive a thrall for talking out of turn, but the boy was young, no more than 20, and soon to die besides. He let it pass. The mute sounded the horn 3 times. You 3 will sound it only once. Might be you'll die, might be you won't. All men die. The Iron Fleet is sailing into battle. Many of you on this very ship will be dead before the sun goes down, stabbed or slashed or gutted, drowned, burned alive. Only the gods know which of us will still be here come the morrow. Sound the horn and live, and I'll make free men of you. 1 or 2, or all 3. I'll give you wives, a bit of land, a ship to sail, thralls of your own. Men will know your names. Even you, Lord Captain? Asked the bastard's bastard. Aye. Then I'll do it. And me, said the boy. The brute crossed his arms and nodded. If it made the 3 feel braver to believe they had a choice, let them cling to that. Victarion cared little what they believed. They were only thralls. You will sail with me on the Iron Victory, he told them, but you will not join in the battle. Boy, you are the youngest. You'll sound the horn first. When the time comes, you will blow it long and loud. They say you are strong. Blow the horn until you are too weak to stand, until the last breath has been squeezed from you, until your lungs are burning. Let the freed men hear you and Marine, the slavers in Yunkai, the ghost in Astapor. Let the monkeys shit themselves at the sound when it rolls across the Isle of Setters. Then pass the horn to the next man. Do you hear me? Do you know what to do? The boy and the bastard's bastard tugged their forelocks. The brute might have done the same, but he was bold. You may touch the horn, then go. They left him one by one, 3 thralls, and then Moqorro. Victarion would not let him take the hell horn. I will keep it here with me, until it is needed. As you command. Would you have me bleed you? Victarion seized the dusky woman by the wrist, and pulled her to him. She will do it. Go pray to your red god. Light your fire and tell me what you see. Moqorro's dark eyes seemed to shine. I see dragons.
Now, obviously, to talk about Victarion, we have to talk about Moqorro too. So now I'm going to show you guys my theory for Moqorro.
In the continent of Essos, there are a few religions growing faster than the worship of the red god R'hllor, a dualistic religion of fire and pain and life, and ice and cold and death. Slave children are often bought by the red priesthood to serve as prostitutes, or warriors, or priests. In A Dance with Dragons we are introduced to Moqorro, a man with skin black as pitch, hair white as ivory, and a face shrouded in flame. Moqorro is sent by the Red Priesthood as a gift for Daenerys Targaryen, supposedly to offer guidance. Tyrion encounters Moqorro while on a ship bound to Qarth. Have you come to pray with me? Someone told me the night was dark and full of terrors. What do you see in those flames? Dragons. Dragons old and young, true and false, bright and dark, and you, a small man with a big shadow snarling in the midst of it. When the ship is hit by a storm, Moqorro is presumed dead, until of course he shows up again on the ship of Victarion Greyjoy, where he gains Victarion's trust with his strange powers and predictions. But what are Moqorro's true intentions? Is he truly loyal to Victarion, or is the Greyjoy simply a pawn in Moqorro's ultimate goal? First, we have to decrypt some of Moqorro's prophecies. Moqorro mentions to Tyrion that he sees dragons true and false. This likely refers to Dany, the true dragon, and Aegon, the false dragon. He also refers to Tyrion as a small man with a big shadow. This is not the first time that Tyrion's large shadow has been drawn to our attention. The first time our author does this is in a Jon Snow POV chapter. When he opened the door, the light from within threw his shadow clear across the yard, and for just a moment, Tyrion Lannister stood as tall as a king. And again, in A Clash of Kings, during Tyrion's conversation with Varys on the abstract nature of power, Varys smiled. Here, then, power resides where men believe it resides. No more, no less. So power is a mummer's trick. A shadow on the wall, Varys murmured. Yet shadows can kill, and oftentimes a very small man can cast a very large shadow. What Moqorro seems to be implying here is that Tyrion will be essential to events to come. His large shadow represents his influence. Moqorro sees him snarling in the midst of dragons, casting his shadow, which implies that although Tyrion will have influence, it will not be something that he desires, more so something that is forced upon him. Have you seen these others in your fires? He asked warily. Only their shadows, Moqorro said. One most of all, a tall and twisted thing, with one black eye and 10 long arms, sailing on a sea of blood. This seems to refer to Euron Greyjoy, the Crow's Eye. The sigil of House Greyjoy is the Kraken, a 10-limbed sea monster with one enormous eye. The fact that he sees him sailing on a sea of blood says to me that death shall follow the Kraken wherever he goes. Perhaps this could refer to Victarion as well, who we know Moqorro has glimpsed also. The fact that Moqorro sees the Kraken's shadow most of all implies that the Kraken will be Daenerys Targaryen's greatest adversary. And since Victarion does possess what is claimed to be a dragon binder, a horn that can bind dragons to its will, this lends credibility to this idea. Moqorro provides Victarion with much useful information when he is saved from the sea. But there is one particular prophecy that seems to stand out as being more ominous than even Victarion realizes. Your drowned god is a demon, the Black Priest Moqorro said afterwards. He is no more than a thrall of the other, the dark god whose name must not be spoken. Take care, priest, Victarion warned. There are godly men aboard this ship, men who would tear out your tongue for speaking such blasphemies. Your red god will have his due, I swear it. My word is iron. Ask any of my men. The Black Priest bowed his head. There is no need. The Lord of Light has shown me your worth, Lord Captain. Every night in my fires I glimpse the glory that awaits you. What glory is Moqorro referring to here? What due shall the Red God have of Victarion? There seems to be but one option here. Fire and blood. Victarion will die and be given to the flames. Moqorro always knew that Tyrion's ship would not reach Qarth. He knew that he was bound for Slaver's Bay. His every action and every word is careful and precise. When Moqorro is found by Victarion's ship, the crew wishes him to be put to death. Moqorro's calmness strikes fear into the heart of the Ironborn. He tells Victarion that he knows of his plans to seek out Daenerys Targaryen, and also that Victarion will die from the wound on his arm without his help. Through fire and magic, Moqorro heals Victarion, and his arm becomes as black as Moqorro's skin. But was it truly in Victarion's best interest? 2 other Red Priests feature prominently in our story, Melisandre and Thoros of Myr. Both of them are sent to Westeros with orders from the Red Priesthood. Thoros was sent to King's Landing to curry the favor of the then fire-obsessed Mad King Aerys. But the king was unimpressed by his tricks. Melisandre's goal, however, is less clear. In the beginning, she believes Stannis Baratheon to be Azor Ahai reborn, but later seems to question this in favor of Jon Snow. I pray for a glimpse of Azor Ahai, and R'hllor shows me only snow. Both Melisandre and Thoros seem to possess power that normal men do not. Melisandre can use her ruby to glamour and perhaps even control people. In A Dance with Dragons, when Mance Rayder approaches Melisandre, she can feel the ruby stir. Melisandre felt the warmth in the hollow of her throat as the ruby stirred at the closeness of its slave. Here, our author implies that Mance is bound to Melisandre's will because of the ruby. Could Victarion as well be under the influence of a similar type of magic? In A Dance with Dragons, Moqorro spends a great deal of time studying the inscriptions on the dragon binder. Moqorro tells Victarion that it translates to, "I am dragon binder. No mortal man shall sound me and live. Blood for fire, fire for blood. Who blows the hell horn matters not. The dragons will come to the horn's master. You must claim the horn with blood." Which is exactly what Moqorro may do. If Victarion is truly bound to Moqorro's magic, then is Moqorro not truly Victarion's master? The master of the master. Moqorro seeks the power of dragons. He will use Victarion, who has foolishly fallen into his trap, to gain what he seeks. But to what end? Power? The glory of the priesthood? The answer is unclear. What is clear, however, is that Moqorro does not have Victarion's best interest in mind. He is clearly hiding several crucial details about his visions, and he is not likely translating all of the inscriptions on the dragon binder. It is possible that Moqorro views the Greyjoys as a threat and wants to neutralize the threat so that Daenerys Targaryen will succeed. And it is also possible that Moqorro, like so many in our story, seeks only power for himself. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more ideas of Ice and Fire. Also check... So, Moqorro. Yeah, it's my opinion that Moqorro is using Victarion because Moqorro wants the dragon binder for himself. But what Moqorro does not realize, what Moqorro has not seen, is that the dragon binder already has an owner. Moqorro knows that it matters not who blows the hell horn. All that matters is who is the horn's master. And he's set up this situation where he has bound himself to Victarion, and he has kind of become Victarion's master without Victarion knowing. But the horn already has a master, and that's Euron. Euron has set this up from, God knows how long. Euron has been places that no one has been. For the fact that he went to Valyria, and not only survived, but brought back several artifacts, says enough. It says enough that he is not alone in this. He has been helped, he has been guided by something else. And I talked about before in another video, which I won't be playing here, about Euron's eye patch and what's actually behind it, and what this blood eye, as the Winds of Winter calls it, really is describing. Blood eye sounds a lot like Bloodstone, and we know about the Bloodstone Emperor who brought on the Long Night. And also in the Forsaken chapter, we also get Euron sitting upon the Iron Throne with a squid's head, kind of, and you get all the other gods of the world impaled upon it. So Euron, in my opinion, is the servant of some other force that means to take out all these other quote-unquote gods, or at least ideas of gods, because who knows, because these gods aren't really based on anything. It's just mostly, religions that people have come up with over time. So what this being is doing, he's going to say that no one else can worship another god, you will worship me. And Euron seems to have in his head that this being is working for him and not realizing that he is ultimately a pawn as well. But that goes even deeper. So Victarion definitely has one of the most interesting stories in all of A Song of Ice and Fire. He's a character that's been cut from the show, obviously, and they may have bound him, they may have combined him a little bit with Euron in the show, but just a little bit. You don't really get a lot of what's going on with Victarion in the books, in the show. Now, like I said earlier, Victarion has a lot of problems with Euron steaming back pretty far. You see, you have Victarion's wife. Victarion's all in love, he's got a wife. And you have Euron, since he's just a really despicable, evil guy. He rapes Victarion's wife. He gets her pregnant. And Victarion, he's very honorable, whatever that means. Honorable really just means that you follow the rules of wherever you live. So since Victarion is very honorable, to preserve his honor, he beats his own wife to death. Beats her to death. Because she got raped. And, is that fair? It's not really fair, but, it's the way it works. But since then, because that's not something that Victarion wanted to do, Victarion was forced into this.
because this is the ideas that their culture has about what's honorable, what's not honorable. And, and the thing is, that might sound crazy to you, but there are places in the world where this type of stuff happens. Like a woman gets raped and it's considered her fault. So I just chew on that for a little bit. But anyways, it's not something that Victarion wanted to do, and since then he's kind of hated Euron. And then you've got Aeron, who is their other brother, who's pretty much always hated Euron. Because, it goes back even deeper, because Euron has always been evil, right? So Euron is also a child molester, and there's evidence that Euron molested Aeron, the damp hair. But we don't really, there's no evidence that he did the same thing to Victarion, because Victarion is a little bit older. Yeah. Yeah, Euron, yeah. Yeah, Jack Wyman. Yeah, Euron's very evil. He's very, very evil. Now, yeah, so Victarion has been sent on this quest, quote-unquote quest, to find Daenerys Targaryen to use to get one of her dragons. And he's being manipulated by Euron, but doesn't know it. But I don't think that Euron himself predicted Moqorro. Like, he couldn't have possibly ever figured out that Moqorro was going to come along, because Moqorro actually kind of throws a wrench into the whole situation, because Moqorro can read the inscription on the dragon binder. He knows things that he really shouldn't know. And he tells Victarion that the dragon binder says, "No mortal man shall sound me and live, and you must claim it with blood." You must claim it with blood. And I assume that claiming it with blood means that it's your will that you impose upon another person, and you tell them to do something. It's the will that matters, and not the actual action itself. But we already know that Euron has already sacrificed someone using this horn, and that was the man during the King's Moot. Euron has the slave, or whoever he was, blow the horn, and this guy dies. So Euron has already made that sacrifice. He's already claimed the horn with blood. And all that Victarion's doing is passing it further down the line. But the thing is, in that chapter that we read, the Winds of Winter chapter, when Euron is making these men blow the horn, what he's doing is he's trying to summon the dragon. All right, and let me set up the situation that's going on right now in the Winds of Winter. So Daenerys' dragons are out. They have been released. Daenerys is somewhere off in the Dothraki Sea, but those dragons are released, and they're flying around Meereen, and they're causing a lot of havoc. And the reason that they got released is because another character that's not in the book, Quentyn Martell, who is the son of Doran Martell, he was also on his little quest during Feast and during Dance to find Daenerys to ask her hand in marriage, but she rejects him. She rejects him, and then she flies up on her dragon, and, she's in the Dothraki Sea. So he gets it in his head that since somewhere down the line he has some connection with Valyrian blood, that, he could, control the dragon and whip it into submission like Daenerys did in the dragon pit. So he goes downstairs. He opens up the dragon pit, and, he gets roasted by the dragons. And a lot of people think that Quentyn is alive. I'm sorry. I think that bed is the last place where he's going to be seen. He's gone, guys. Quentyn's finished. He feels his face melting off. That says it enough. Quentyn's dead. So since Quentyn did that, the dragons obviously escape, and they're out, and, they're causing havoc. Now, that Winds of Winter chapter takes place right before the battle that's about to take place outside of the gates of Meereen. So by Euron having them blow that horn, using his will, he is trying to bind one of Daenerys' dragons, which are loose, to him. But see, the thing is, not only did Euron already bind that dragon horn to himself, he is the one that's telling Victarion to do this, so he's already imposed his will upon Victarion. Now, you could argue that Victarion is trying to betray him, but at the end of the day, I think that Euron knows what's happening. This is all part of Euron's bigger plan, because Euron has foreseen way more than anyone thought. I don't think he foresaw Moqorro, but he foresaw more than anyone thought, and I don't think Moqorro messes up Euron's plan. It might throw a wrench in Victarion's plan, but it really doesn't mess up Euron's plan. So at the end of the Forsaken chapter in the Winds of Winter, Euron has tied up all these different priests to the prows of all these different ships, and he's sailing presumably for Meereen. He might stop at Valyria beforehand, but I think he's sailing to Meereen, because Daenerys also sees In either this is either a vision that she sees, or this is something that Quaithe tells her. I cannot remember right off the bat, but it's a dead man. It's a corpse on the prow of a ship headed towards her, and that is the coming of Euron Greyjoy. And you got Moqorro, who's also foreseeing Euron. He sees him as, an eye with 1,000 limbs or something like that in the midst of a sea of blood. Because Euron is sailing upon the seas, and he's literally sailing, with death ahead of him. He's got corpses on the prows of his ships. He's sailing with death ahead of him. So, that's Euron. So what Euron is doing is that he knows that Victarion is somewhere in Slaver's Bay, blowing this dragon horn. The dragons are unleashed. Euron is sailing to claim his own dragon. Because when that horn is sounded, after this chapter, when that horn is sounded and that dragon is bound with blood, it will belong to Euron. Euron will be the master of either Victarion or Rhaego, and probably Victarion. And that's what I think is going down with the dragon situation. It's not about a dragon being killed by the Night King as it is in the show. It's going to be Euron that takes Victarion, and Victarion will be Euron's dragon, and he will use that dragon to fight Daenerys. Or maybe not even fight her, just to, kind of even manipulate her and control her for her hand in marriage. So that's what I think is going on with the Dragon Binder. And Victarion will Victarion I think will meet a sad end. I think that Moqorro will end up using Victarion. He'll burn Victarion alive, because that's what these red priests do. They don't care. Their goals are to the red god. And when Moqorro says to Victarion, every night in my fires, the Lord of Light shows me your destiny, your purpose. And he's so like ironic, and he says it kind of creepy. It's very ominous the way he says this. That leads me to believe that Moqorro does not have Victarion's best interest in mind. And why is he serving Victarion? Why is he helping him? Just to stay alive? I think he's using that as a cover. I think he's trying to manipulate Victarion, but he isn't expecting that Euron has already done what he's done. Alright, so that's my spiel on the Dragon Binder, I think. And then by that point in time, once Euron gets the dragon, he's gonna, like I said, use that dragon to manipulate Daenerys to his will. Because, those dragons are her children. She loves her dragon, so she sees that it's in the hand of Euron. She's gonna, do whatever she has to do to keep him happy, so that he doesn't, fight her with the dragon or harm her other dragons with that dragon. If he's Euron is a huge wild card if he's got another one of her dragons. So that is definitely a huge wrench in Daenerys' whole thing. And I think that's where I think this is going to be one of the major differences, book to show. It won't be the Night King that gets a dragon. It'll be Euron. And so I'm going to take some questions from the chat now that I've talked for a while. You guys can chime in and give me some of your thoughts and ideas on Victarion and Euron, and what's going to be going on in the Winds of Winter. And also with Moqorro, who's a sneaky little guy. I've heard a theory that some people think that Moqorro was actually Marwyn, who's the maester at the Citadel, that he left, and he's glamoring himself as Moqorro. But I don't know if Marwyn is Moqorro, so that's not a theory of mine. That's just one that I've heard. Wait, what? Has this all been in the books? It's been a long time since I've read A Dance to Dragons. This all seems unfamiliar to me. This is all in the books. This is all in the books, except for that Winds of Winter chapter that I read beforehand. All of it's in the books. My theory is that he will try and bind a dragon, fail, and be destroyed, which is why it was cut from the show, essentially because it goes nowhere. I think that Euron will bind that dragon. I think that dragon, the bound dragon, that dragon might die and be resurrected. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's Euron that takes Victarion and uses it against Daenerys. But we will see. We will see, because we don't know. And I also did a theory on the fourth dragon, which could potentially show up in the show. That's on my channel. Why doesn't anyone go to get the Kraken horn? You believe in the Kraken horn? Well, I don't necessarily know if the Krakenhorn exactly exists. We know that Krakens are potentially a thing because we get, rumors of Krakens taking down ships somewhere. Somewhere in the books, we get rumors of that. So, there's like that. It's heavily hinted. When do you think The Winds of Winter is coming out? Well, George has said that there's several months to go, so we're looking at 2008. We know that the show is getting postponed to 2019. After this episode today, the next episode is gonna be in 2019. So we're hoping that the book comes out in 2018. And you see, the thing is, the first book took 6 years to write. Like, George R. Martin was writing for 6 years before that book came out, and it's been 6 years since The Winds of Winter. So people that have this idea that he's not trying or that he's not working fast enough, I mean, he's always worked at a similar pace to what he's working at right now. And I mean, I feel like you can't really rush this kind of genius because George R. Martin is a genius. Like, I mean, you call me a fanboy for saying that, but George R. Martin is a genius. I mean, that type of stuff is not easy to write. Is it possible Euron could use the power of the dragon to flood the lands and give himself a strategic advantage over Westeros? Well, of course. Well, like, a dragon in this world is like a nuclear weapon. He could do anything. And Euron's not mad. See, in the show, I feel like Euron is mad. But Euron is not mad in the book. Euron is he's very intelligent. He's evil. He's very evil. He's one of the closest things to evil that you can find. But he's not crazy. He's not mad. He knows what he's doing. He's very strategic. And he has a plan. He has a plan. If he can't manipulate Daenerys with that dragon, then rather than fight her and, risk getting that dragon killed and risk getting another dragon killed, he'd probably just take that dragon, fly off, and conquer Westeros, because you could conquer Westeros with one dragon. Why not? His best bet, Euron's best bet at, this plan succeeding is that Daenerys agrees to marry him and that Daenerys sides with him. And, if she does, that kind of sheds a little bit of light. Let's say Euron binds that dragon and he uses it to manipulate Daenerys to his side. That shines a little bit of light on the image that he sees in the Forsaken chapter, the image that Aeron sees in the vision. He sees Euron sitting on the Iron Throne, and he sees a woman who's like a white flame. And, that kind of seems like Daenerys. Who is this woman? Well, if he does marry Daenerys and he's using this dragon, that could be Daenerys. But then again, it also says that dwarves caper for their amusement and they laugh together. So that's what makes me think that it's not Daenerys, actually, and more likely Cersei, because the fact that it's dwarves capering and that she's laughing, Cersei, she has a problem with Tyrion. But also, Daenerys has a gentle heart. Daenerys is someone that actually does care about the people and wants to do the best for the people. And I don't really see her siding with someone as despicable as Euron. Because, like I said, he is the closest thing to evil that we've seen so far. And Daenerys is like the closest thing to like almost like I'm not going to say perfect, but she's almost like that perfect goody two-shoes like princess. Because, like, look, I always point to A Dance with Dragons, where she literally goes out and puts hands on those sick and dying people. She does that out of the kindness of her heart, which is something that a lot of people would not do. A kraken versus a fully mature dragon would be intense. That's something that I'm looking forward to seeing, too. Like, Melisandre sees something in A Dance with Dragons. She sees something come out of the ocean, and she sees dragons flying overhead. So we very well may get a kraken before the end of this series. I definitely think. Do you think the showrunner's decision to speed up the series will ruin its legacy? Well, look, Game of Thrones has done so much for culture right now. It's a big cultural phenomenon. I mean, you can say that at least. I think that most people will look back and really enjoy Game of Thrones till the very end. People don't tend to like to criticize things that they love, and I'm not immune from that either. But I think ultimately most people will look back at Game of Thrones and see it as, a groundbreaking, television series, because that's what it is. It's definitely groundbreaking. It's that's spam. I'm sorry, but that's spam. But I'm hoping that I'm hoping that the legacy of Game of Thrones is not destroyed by some of the poor decisions that they're making. And I don't think it will be ultimately. What would Euron make of the White Walkers and the others? What do you think he would do? Try to negotiate? Attack? I think Euron is the type of person that would try to negotiate. I think he would. I think Euron has seen things. Euron has seen things that most people haven't seen. Euron has sailed to Valyria. He's met something in Valyria, or someone. Like I'm not letting go of that. Euron has met someone in Valyria or something, you know, and he has more insight into what's going on than I think a lot of people do. So I think Euron is totally the person that would try and negotiate with the others. I think he's totally that guy because he's on the mystical side of things. Like I've done I've done at least 1 or 2 videos on like the mystical side of Euron. He's on that mystical side. I think he's almost the perfect candidate to have a conversation with the others. I do. He's got the bloodstone in his eye. He's got a piece of the comet in his eye. That's my own personal theory, that the comet landed, and it landed in Valyria, and Euron took it, a piece of that bloodstone, and he made it into his blood eye, and that's what his glass eye is made of. That's what the blood eye is. And something is watching through that eye. Something is watching. Okay. Okay. Do you think Euron could be a servant of the three-eyed crow or the crow himself? I don't think so. I don't think that's who Euron is serving. I think Euron is on another team. Not necessarily a team that's against the three-eyed crow, but it's another team. Do you think it's possible that Euron met the shadow people that taught the Valyrians of old how to control dragons? That's a possibility, actually, that one that I haven't discovered. I'll go ahead and explain that for people that don't know a lot about it. In the world of Ice and Fire, there's a legend. There's a legend that the Valyrians, the reason that they learned to control dragons was because people from the Shadow, people so ancient that they had no name, came from the Shadow, way over in Ashai. Not Ashai, but, you know, the Mountains of the Morn, the actual place that's known as the Shadow. These ancient people came over here and they taught the Valyrians sorcery, and they taught them how to tame dragons. And, you know, that's how the Valyrians got all these skills, because you think about it, the Valyrians were just sheep herders, so you think how in the world that these people get this, get these abilities and get this knowledge. So it is a little weird how they got the knowledge. So it's the shadow people that kind of explains it a lot better than, you know, they just found them in the 14 fires themselves and just automatically knew how to control them. The fact that the shadow people taught them makes a lot more sense. So what you're asking, I assume, is if Euron, because we know that Euron sailed to Valyria. There's no doubt in my mind that Euron sailed to Valyria. But were there still shadow people there that told him all this stuff? I think the only shadow person that's been at work so far, I think, is Quaithe. And Quaithe is definitely from the shadow, right? Because she introduces herself. She does not say that I am Quaithe of Ashai by the shadow. She says I am Quaithe of the shadow. I am Quaithe of the shadow itself. Right? She's not from Ashai, she's from the shadow. So she is on Daenerys' side, and she warns Daenerys of Euron. Unless these people within the shadow have conflicting goals, and I don't think they do. I think the people from the shadow have one specific goal, and that was to birth dragons in the world. You know, to be the antithesis to what's happening in the north, which is ice made flesh and the coming of these ice teamings. You know, the shadow people are the other half of that. They're the fire side of that. They're cloaked in shadow in the dark city of Stygii. And, you know, that's a volcanic mountain. So, you know, it's a volcanic mountain, you know, shredded and cloaked in shadow. So the dragons come from, you know, volcanoes. They were in the 14 fires. So I think Quaithe is on Daenerys' side, and she warns Daenerys of Euron. So I don't think that Euron was actually influenced by someone from the shadow. I think it's a newcomer. I think it's whatever came with that comet. And I know I've got some really crazy, you know, like metaphysical crazy ideas about this. But, you know, I think that's what it is. If we look at the legend of the Bloodstone Emperor and what he actually did, he worshipped this crazy stone that fell from the sky called Bloodstone. And he killed his own sister. And this is what brought on the Long Night. Him killing his own sister is what brought on the Long Night, right? And he went crazy. He started worshiping all these strange gods. He took a tiger woman to bride. He started the Church of the Starry Wisdom, which is another Lovecraft thing. And, you know, he brought on the Long Night. And then you've got the Five Forts, which were built to keep the Lion of Night from, the realms of man. It's the same story as what happened with the wall. And also, you have in the beginning of ET, in the very early on, like 10,000 years before the Bloodstone Emperor stuff happened, you had, might have been more than 10,000. I'm not sure exactly how long, but you have the Emperor of the Dawn, who ruled for 10,000 years. This dude was not human, right? He was a god, and when he died, he ascended into the stars. Now, what I'm saying is that when he ascended, other entities from the stars, other beings, saw the vacancy that it left, and they came pouring in. And that's where you get the descent of Yeti, and you get the fall of Yeti into chaos. The people turn their backs on each other. They're like the empire split. There was horror, and you see this great kingdom that fell slowly. And the World of Ice and Fire literally says, baleful beast pressed at the borders of their empire. So I think, without a doubt, they were influenced by outside odds, by things from the stars. And then you have, beyond the Five Forts, in the Great Waste, you literally have the city of Kadath, which is another Lovecraft thing. That is a place where these cosmic gods, that is the castle where the cosmic gods live. All right, so that is a direct reference to Lovecraft. So I think George R. R. Martin is definitely referencing Lovecraft with these comets falling, the color from outer space, which is like, this weird asteroid falls to Earth in a Lovecraft story, and it corrupts everything. That's what we're dealing with here. And I think that's what landed in Valyria. That's what the Red Comet was. It was just another thing falling to Earth, and Euron took a piece of that, and it's in Euron's eye. And he's manipulating everyone with it, including Victarion. All right. So I'll take another question. So do you think that the Great Other and R'hllor are simply beings that took the Dawn Emperor's place? See, I think they're parts of it. I don't know if they're actually R'hllor or the Great Other. They could be the same being for all I know. But I think there is something that's pretending to be these things, and maybe not even pretending to be, but people are interpreting them as this. You know what I'm saying? Because you live in a world where magic really exists, and you have these forces, that you do something like you look into a fire for long enough, or you sacrifice something, and this really affects the world in some crazy metaphysical way, then you will attribute this to a god. Make no mistake, and you're going to build religions around this, and you're going to add all these caveats to it. You're going to add a bunch of stuff that might not necessarily be true about these forces. Now, like the R'hllor and the Great Other, these aren't good things. Neither of these are good. They are what's the word? They are totally amoral beings. They don't care about mankind. They're playing game. They're playing the grand game. The thing about cosmic entities is that, and this is true throughout anything dealing with cosmic horror, they get bored. These things are eternal. They're immortal. So they use people like toys. Like, people are mere toys to them. You don't matter at all in the grand scheme to these beings. And I feel like they're toying with the people of Westeros and the people of Essos and the people of this world in very subtle ways. In very, very subtle ways, because I don't think they want, or maybe they can't even interact directly with these people. So they interact through dreams, through suggestion, because it's also a big thing that you see in, Lovecraft. You see that the gods are generally imprisoned or asleep, and they can't really enact with the mortal world directly. And that's exactly what I think is going on here. So now that I've been talking for a while, I have about 400 people watching. If you've enjoyed the talk that I've been having so far, feel free to like. Likes really help out the stream. Also, check me out on Twitter and Facebook. And if you're so inclined, check out my Patreon. But definitely hit like, smash the like button, and I'm going to take some more of you guys' questions. Martin once said he really loves comics, like Marvel growing up. In Marvel, COS, oh, you mean Cosmic. Cosmic, take the characteristics as the representative champion. Is that be what we see when Euron is associated with the Drowned God? I'm not really. Please reword that question, because I think there was a few typos, and I don't want to answer it incorrectly, so I want to get what you're saying. So retype that question. Do you think we get a glimpse? Oh, thanks. Let me answer this question first, since I was already reading it. Do you think we get a glimpse into Sathoros? Euron's been everywhere. Maybe he'll mention it only in passing. I hope so. I'd like to know more about Sathoros, but sometimes I get the impression that George R. Martin just drew those other sides, just because he needed, to make more up on the map. All right. Marie of Oss, I take it that you're from Australia. Thank you so much for your super chat. She says, my first live vid from you. I'm completely hooked into what you're saying. Can't even come up with a question. So I thought you should at least have support for your time. Thank you so much, Marie. Your support is always helpful. Super chats are really good because now YouTube is acting really crazy with the ad revenue right now. Like you'd be surprised. You see the views and you think they'd make way more, but no, YouTube is like nuts with the ad revenue right now, and they're not giving us anything. And some videos of people I've got friends that their videos just get straight up denied for ad revenue. So like the YouTubers aren't making any money anymore off of the ad revenue. So super chats and Patreon totally help out a lot. Will you do an Order of the Green Hand join book only stream, Quinn, please? Well, I do know Order of the Green Hand, and maybe we will set something up. Do you think the stuff the Red Priest sees in the fire are like video messages left by Bran when he visits the future or past or present, but magical, of course? Might have in... Okay, I don't think that the vision that they're seeing in fire are left by Bran. I think it is the nature of their world that when you stare into a fire, this plasma, that's what fire is, like this moving plasma. When you stare into it, you get glimpses into, different realms of existence and different metaphysical dimensions. I think that's what you're seeing. It's simply the nature of their world that when you look into this flame, you see glimpses of the future. And this may be guided by some of these other forces, by some of these more abstract entities. This may be guided slightly, but I think that's really what's going on. Like this let's say Melisandre is looking into the fire and she's praying to her lore. Any force or unseen entity could manipulate what she sees if it were powerful enough and pretend that this vision is from R'hllor. But I think Melisandre also has her own skill in seeing what's in the flame, which comes from just the nature of their universe. You mentioned that Euron was in Valyria, but the Song of Ice and Fire app says he got Dragonbinder from the Warlocks, so it's most likely him lying to impress people more. If he got I haven't looked at the app. If it does say that, then very interesting. But I do think that he's gone to Valyria, because the Valyrian armor is something that, where are the Warlocks going to get Valyrian armor? There's like, even, it's said that even in the time of Valyria, you could, a full suit of Valyrian armor, you've got to be wealthy as heck. And then for him to have that right now, and for that to just be given to him by some Warlocks, you'd think, why? Unless this is but we got to remember, if I'm going to dig into this a little bit more, we do got to remember that the Warlocks of Qarth want Daenerys dead. They dropped this in the show after like season 3. They completely dropped the Warlock plot. But in the books, these Warlocks still want Daenerys dead for what she did to the Undying Ones. So I haven't really thought about and unpacked the idea that they are working with Euron to destroy Daenerys, but that's very interesting. But I think that he did get this Valyrian armor from Valyria, though. I think because, that's something I feel like George R. Martin put in that chapter, The Forsaken, which is from the Winds of Winter. I think that he put that in the chapter to solidify to you that, yeah, this dude has been to Valyria, because he wouldn't have got this from anywhere else. Okay. If the gods are affecting people in the story, does that take away from the core of the story that we as humans in A Song of Ice and Fire, especially the Lovecraftian stuff, feel like we don't have... Okay. I think I was reading that question and then, it got deleted. Yeah, I was reading your question and it got deleted, and I jumped to somebody else's question. So please type that up if you want me to read it again. How much of Essos mythology do you think will directly in A Song of Ice and Fire, especially the Lovecraftian stuff? I feel like if you don't have the world encyclopedia, you miss out on a lot of it.
Well, I definitely think you do miss out on a lot of the World of Ice and Fire because those sidebars. George R. R. Martin wrote all those sidebars in the World of Ice and Fire. So like the little bars, he wrote all of that, and that has some of the most interesting stuff and counter legends about stuff going on. You know, you have what's presented in the books, and then you have all these counter legends that he couldn't find a place to put. I feel like all of those sidebars, that's the most important stuff. That's the stuff that he really wanted you to see. As far as how much of it, I don't know if all of it will be, fully realized. I think it is really vague. And, when I talk about these cosmic forces that are affecting people, it's very subtle. And I don't think there'll ever be a moment where someone's like, this being is, I don't think there'll ever be a moment where this being comes onto the stage and presents itself. I think it will always be like very subtle. He'll drop hints that this is what's happening, but it'll never be fully realized. Do you think the White Walkers are visually distinct from what it is in the book, or do you think their description in the books is just more flattering? No, I definitely think that they're different book to show, because George R. R. Martin has described them as beautiful. He calls them beautiful, inhuman, otherworldly, deadly. They're definitely something else. I feel like in the book, you definitely get the sense that there are these beautiful, ice beings. They're very elegant. That's another word that George uses to describe them. Elegant. And in the show, they kind of look like old men. So I think there is a difference between, what they look like in the book and what they look like in the show. Because in the book, you also get their armor is made of ice too, and you don't get that in the show. But in the book, their armor is made of ice, and it changes color and stuff. So it's totally weirder in the book. And more interesting too. It's more fantasy, I think. Is the show going to incorporate some of Euron's powers like the horn? I don't think that the show really knows what to do with Euron. Because they're not doing much. In the show, Euron is kind of like a bro, and he kind of definitely seems like an idiot. They might throw me for a ranch in this most recent episode, but he definitely seems like kind of a moron. Because, he's got this idea that, oh, I'm going to bang Cersei, and Cersei's going to be my queen. But, dude, Cersei's going to try and kill you. I hope he knows that. I don't know. Because I have no idea what they're going to do with this character in the show. I really, really don't know. I'm beyond trying to guess what they do with, these really complex, good characters from the books. It's really hard. Because he's already so different. They took elements of him and combined them with Victarion a little bit. You see a little bit of that this season when he's on the ship. And he's got the axe and stuff like that. But, it's very different. How do we stop the leaks? Well, whoever is at HBO that's leaking the leaks should stop. I mean, there's nothing really we can do. And, I'm hard on HBO sometimes, but really, ultimately, there's not much that they can do. Just step up their security and, just do whatever you can to stop it. If the show followed the book closely in the first season, wouldn't that prove that White Walkers presented in the show are book-like because of Martin's direction? Well, you see, the funny thing is, those first season White Walkers look totally different from the White Walkers now. Go back and look at that opening scene. They look totally different. And they still don't really look like the book description. But, there's a lot of limitations with, the way they look in the book as well. There's a lot, how would you portray that armor without CGI? That's something that would be difficult to do. So there's a lot that's difficult to do. But, the first season, they didn't really look like they look now at all. Go back and look. They really did not. They definitely changed the look of them for the end of season 2 when they're marching. They definitely changed the look of them. Okay. Qyburn is working with Marwyn, who has connections in Dorne, but seems to be his own power center. See, Marwyn is an interesting figure as well. We have multiple characters throughout the books that have claimed to have worked with Marwyn, and Qyburn is one of them. And then we also have Mirri Maz Duur, who claims to have studied with Marwyn. So that name's been thrown around a lot, and everyone that has worked with Marwyn, has all this weird magical knowledge, right? Oh, and the interesting thing is, Qyburn preserves, he stops the mountain from dying, and Mirri Maz Duur also stops Khal Drogo from dying. So it's kind of similar. in the end. But yeah, both of these people have connections to Qyburn, not Qyburn, but Marwyn. Qyburn and Mirri Maz Duur both have connections to Marwyn, and both of these characters have been influences to powerful leaders. You have Mirri Maz Duur, who is a huge influence on Daenerys. Like, oh my god, like people underestimate like how big of an influence Mirri Maz Duur was on Daenerys. If it was not for Mirri Maz Duur, Daenerys would have probably died. You know, I am so convinced that it was actually Mirri Maz Duur in the book. It was Mirri Maz Duur's song that kept Daenerys from burning alive. All right, so bear with me. Daenerys wakes up and she knows exactly what she has to do after the baby's born and after Mirri Maz Duur has sacrificed the child. She wakes up and she knows exactly what she has to do. She knows that she has to build the pyre. She knows that she has to put the dragon eggs on it. And inexplicably she knows, and I think that those instructions were given to her by Quaithe, who is from the Shadow. So, but she knows how to do this, right? And you have Mirri Maz Duur, who says, "You will not hear me scream, Daenerys." And Daenerys says to her, "I don't want to hear you scream. I just want your life." But why does Mirri Maz Duur say that you will not hear me scream? Why would she say that? Anyone that's going to get set on fire is going to scream, and you're going to know that you're going to scream. So is Mirri just boasting? Idly, is she just boasting for no reason that you're not going to hear me scream? I don't think so. I think that Mirri Maz Duur, when she was singing, when she began to sing, it created a spell. But the spell actually didn't end up protecting her. It didn't protect her. It ended up, for some reason, protecting Daenerys. And that's why Daenerys survived. We know that songs are spells. That's what they are. The children of the forest, they sang a song, they gathered on the isle, and they sang and they broke, they used the hammer of the water to break the arm of Dorne. All right? With a song. Mirri Maz Duur sings, and she summons those shadows in the tents, and those shadows dance to her singing. She was singing to conjure up a spell, a fire protection spell, and that's what protected Daenerys. And that's why Daenerys was able to survive the fire, and that's why her dragons hatched. It was all because of Mirri Maz Duur. But I don't know if she did it intentionally. I don't think she did. I think it was really her trying to protect herself. That's why she says, "I'm not going to scream." But for some reason, it protected Daenerys instead. It was very ancient magic, and Daenerys was guided to this by Quaithe, who's from the Shadow, who taught the Valyrians to do, magic in the first place. So Quaithe is using the glass candles. So it fits so perfectly, guys. The Valyrians had glass candles, but it totally makes sense that the people from the Shadow had glass candles first. So Quaithe, why wouldn't Quaithe, if she is from the Shadow, have a glass candle? And why wouldn't she put these dreams into the mind of Daenerys Targaryen and, push her slowly throughout the course of A Dance with Dragons? Slowly, she's pushing her in these dreams. Wake the dragon, wake the dragon, wake the dragon. And in the final fever dream, Quaithe comes to her again, and she, tells her what the final steps are to birth these dragons. I've said before that this is something that's happened before. This is something that people from the Shadow have been trying for decades at this point. They tried with Aegon V, it failed. They tried with Aerys Targaryen, it failed. But Daenerys is the first success, and Quaithe is the leader of it this time around. And, it makes perfect sense, because then you have Quaithe in later books that's still coming to Daenerys, but it's finally revealed that it's her. She's still coming to Daenerys with the glass candle in dreams. So, it makes perfect sense to me. Okay. If the magic became much more powerful with the return of dragons, how powerful are the Red Priests if they were powerful enough to become immortal for centuries? Alright, so... Okay. We don't know if all of the Red Priests can become immortal, or if just some of them. I think we have to take into account Melisandre's, stone. That could have something to do with that. That could be, a magic stone. I mean, it is a magic stone. We know that it is a magic stone, but where did that magic stone come from? There's a lot of talk of magic stones going around in here. We got Euron's Eye, we've got the Bloodstone Emperor's Stone, and we've got Melisandre's Ruby. So Melisandre's Ruby could be some ancient power, and it probably is some ancient power. And as for the other part of your question, and also Melisandre, the reason that every Red Priest probably can't do this, Melisandre says that she's better than everyone else. So we have to assume that Melisandre is the only one that's doing this. And as far as magic being more powerful with the Return of the Dragons, we don't actually fully know that. We know that magic came back after the comet fell, right? Because we see that comet before the dragons, and then the dragons come. So maybe it was the comet that allowed for the birth of the dragons, because in the show you definitely get the impression that the dragons come and then the comet comes, but in the book Daenerys sees that dragon before they light that pyre. She looks at that, she sees that comet before they light the pyre. She looks at that comet and she says, that's Drogo's star, and that's when they light the pyre. So it was the comet and then the dragon. So maybe it's the comet that's heralding this new age of magic and not necessarily the dragons. So I think people should think about it more that way. Do you think that the Great Other have a hand in the events of the Doom? Okay. So like I said, there seems like there's a game going on here. And, you've got these more subtle abstract forces that are, pulling the strings of humanity. They're tugging the strings of humanity, right? So initially you've got, and humanity includes the children of the forest and the giants and all this, because to a cosmic being, the children of the forest are nothing. The others are nothing. Like these are like the others, men, the children, these are all corporeal beings. We're talking about beings that are far beyond the realm of, corporeal nonsense. These are cosmic, metaphysical beings. So the others are nothing to them. So these beings have been playing this game for a long time. First was the uprising of, ice. And ice swept over all of Westeros, and darkness fell throughout the land. And then there was the uprising of, fire. And this was right after that. You have the Valyrians that conquer the world through fire, and they spread out everywhere, and they conquer all of Essos. And it's been this back and forth game. And all of this, I think, has been subtly guided by the hand of these forces. And, it's all a great game to them. And I've done several videos on this subject. And it's one of the most interesting topics to talk about, because you look at this and you look at all these Lovecraftian connections. It's literally the names, the same names of these gods. Like I did the video on Qohor, where you have Shub-Nigroth and his 1,000 young, and it's the exact same thing in Qohor. It's literally the same god, the Black Goat, and his 1,000 young. It's literally the same name. Same with the Starry Wisdom, which is the church that worships the cosmic entity Nyarlathotep. The Church of the Starry Wisdom, which the Bloodstone Emperor started. And it goes back, and there's all these connections all over the place. And it's so obvious, this Lovecraftian influence. I think this is what George R. Martin is hinting at. And it's very subtle. These aren't really... And the thing about the Lovecraftian gods is that they aren't really gods. They're the closest thing that a mankind, that if you're a human, you look up and say, that's a god. But really, it's not a god. It's just a super heightened being that's so far beyond us that we can't even comprehend it. And I don't think that really says anything about, the core of the actual story. It's still a story about the human heart in conflict with itself, but there's that whole layer above it. There's that whole layer above it that, is so much crazier and deeper. And I think George R. Martin was definitely going for that whole Lovecraftian thing. And maybe there will be a character somewhere in the story, that kind of sees the cosmic horror and goes mad. Maybe Patchface is that person. Maybe the reason that Patchface is crazy, has anyone ever thought about this? Maybe the reason that he is crazy is because he has actually glimpsed the cosmic horror of it all and seen mankind's purpose in, this grand scheme of things. Because that's a repeating thing in Lovecraft too. Like you see that mankind is just like nothing, compared to the scale of like all this cosmic madness, and they go nuts. They snap. And maybe that's what happened to Patchface. Maybe he was touched by something underneath those waves, and he saw the madness of the universe, and he snapped. He snapped. Okay. You should talk to Preston Jacobs once. I mean, he loves to see the series as sci-fi. You just want to see it as cosmic horror. You could talk about so much. You could have so much to talk about. I mean, I think maybe I will have a conversation with Preston Jacobs one day. You never know what could happen in this life. Do you buy into the Dany is a secret Stark theory? Ned Ashara equals D, because right now the parents we have fire fire Dany and ice/fire John. Not very balanced. Amazing stream. I haven't heard this theory, but I will tell you flat out, I think Daenerys is actually a Targaryen. I don't think that Daenerys has any Stark blood. I think that Daenerys is fully Targaryen. Because otherwise, why would the dragons, really like her so much? Or he almost drowned when he was a kid. Yeah, I know some. Yeah, that's a very real possibility as well. I'm not saying that he didn't, but what he says in those books, it hints at something more. He's literally giving prophetic rhymes. He can see the freaking future. So that should tell you right there, Grand Swing, that there's more than just he drowned as a kid. There's more. He's seeing the future now. There's another layer on top of this. It's more than just a drowning. It's more than just a drowning. Do you agree that the Valyrians and the First Men may have a common ancestor? Some say they both originated from the Empire of the Dawn. I think it's very possible. Who knows how far these bloodlines go back very far, obviously, and who knows how far exactly they go. But I think ultimately, I don't think so, because I think the people in Valyria were just average people. They were goat herders, and there was nothing special about them. But these people from the shadow, for some reason, saw something in them. They saw something in them, and they gave them this knowledge, and they gave them this power. And it's all part of, the grand game. And, the reason that it goes deeper than that is because, there's all this talk about the people from the shadow. And I think if we actually look at what's in the shadow, it's literally the city Stgai. All right? You go through the heart of up the river, through the mountains of Moria, you get to the heart of darkness, the city of Stgai, right? That is directly from Lovecraft. Stgai is the home of the great Cthulhu, an ancient god that sleeps, that sleeps and sends out dreams into the minds of humanity. How that's so good. Of course, this cosmic force used these people, go to the Valyrians to teach them this, because that's the game that it's playing. Thank you so much, Nate Hartswig, for your super chat. Thanks for the vids man, Nate says, and thank you so much for your super chat. It's always greatly appreciated. After George R. Martin's last interview about the different types of white, maybe Patchface is drowned to white, brought back by, water magic. Because, there's a lot that we don't know to the Patchface story. There's rumors that he was brought back to life by the kiss of a Merling. And Merlings are also a thing that we very much do see in, there's a lot of evidence for the Merlings as well. A lot of evidence. And, I'm back talking on the Lovecraft thing because, it connects to this as well. Maester Theron of the Iron Islands said that the legends of the Merlings were just, legends of the Deep Ones, who he believes built the Sea Stone Chair and believes built, Battle Isle. Because some great battle happened at Battle Isle, long time ago, and we don't know why it's called Battle Isle. It was probably a battle between, the Deep Ones and, men or someone else. The Squishers are the Deep Ones. And then, the Deep Ones, if you've been watching my videos, you probably know the Deep Ones, another direct Lovecraft reference. Like, literally the exact same freaking thing. So, yeah, and, these things are supposed to come out of the water and, kidnap the little girls and marry them, and, they eat little boys and stuff like that. What do you think is Lyanna and Rhaegar child in the book? Who do you think is Lyanna and Rhaegar child in the book? Well, honestly, I am leaning towards Jon Snow. People always talk about my R+L=JS False series from like a year ago. And, that was a good series. I think I pulled out a lot of like really good evidence. But, as I've looked at some more things in the series, and as I've seen more and more of it, I'm leaning towards the child being Jon Snow. The show has pretty much confirmed that too. I'm not saying that it can't be different, but at this point, I am leaning more towards Jon Snow than anybody. I think there is a werewood in the House of Black and White. Don't see a werewood face with all the likenesses of gods associated with death. Faceless magic memory network, inspired by the children's. Well, there is a werewood tree there is a werewood face in the House of Black and White. I think Bran actually sees Arya through it at one point. Thank you so much, KK Cat Piter or Pitter, for your super chat. Will you concede that Ned may have married Ashara in the Wolf's Den, although the world reads the top layer. We all know George R. R. Martin is layered. Well, okay. If we dissect Ned a little bit, it doesn't really, it makes sense that, Jon Snow is Lyanna's son, but, a lot of other things that Ned does and think don't make sense. Like when Daenerys is supposedly dead, he thinks to himself, I have failed. Why would he think that he's failed? He's protected Jon Snow, the one that he swore to protect. Did he make an oath to protect Daenerys as well? What's going on with there? And he's ridden with guilt. He's got so much guilt. And, it can't just be the guilt of him. Like, what is this guilt for? If he knows that Jon Snow is not his real son, why is there all this guilt layered on top of that? The guilt seems unwarranted. So I think Ned's secret is far beyond Jon Snow is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen. I think his secret is way deeper than that. I think there's more to it, and I think that it does involve Daenerys in some way, but I'm not exactly sure how. Like, this is something that I definitely need to revisit. I need to stay up one night and just go through, all of Ned's chapters in A Game of Thrones and try and figure this stuff out. Do you think that the Valyrians came to Westeros before the first men? The Danes, maybe. All right. I think that dragon riders came to Westeros. I don't know if they were Valyrians, because the Valyrians didn't really get dragons until after the Long Night, and the first men were already there, so that wouldn't really make sense. But dragon riders, like people from the shadow, yes, and right, and the reason someone asked a question earlier about Daenerys' dragons bringing back magic. The reason that I don't think that's true, and this is a very good reason why that's probably not true. Bran, and I always say this, I feel like I've said this like 10 times. Bran in the first book, when Bloodraven shows him the entire world, he sees dragons in the east, in Asshai. So he already sees that. So before Daenerys' dragons are born, he sees dragons. So they were already there. It was the comet that boosted magic abilities. Alright. So KK, Cat, Piter, you gave me another super chat, man. Thank you so much. You say he never felt guilt about Jon. There is no text to support that. And you're right. You're right. You're totally right. And, in that scene when he's in the dungeon, I think, he's thinking about Daenerys, and that's what triggers the memories, it's not triggered by Jon. It's weird. It's very, very weird. So there's definitely more to it than just Jon is Rhaegar's son. Jon is Lyanna's son. Even if that's true, there's more layers on top of this. You can bet there are for certain. I'm just okay. Let's get another question. Can we talk about House Blackwood in a future video? The most important characters seem to be descendants of female Blackwoods. Thanks for your suggestion, Teresa. That's definitely something that I'll try and get to. Okay, let's go open the chat. I don't know if this chat stopped working or if just no one's commenting right now. Okay, I think there might be something wrong with my chat. I'll just give my chat a refresh. It's no biggie. Maybe there's just no one commenting. But anyway, okay, there's the chat again. It's going again. I think there is a fire net that works like the werewood net. Okay, so I get what you're saying, and I can totally get behind this idea. So, I was thinking that, you have fire. And basically, it's a window. That's what it is. It's a window to another dimension. And I know this is nuts. I know this can come off as a little nuts to people that aren't super familiar with my ideas. But, no, it's a window to another dimension. And where time doesn't really work the way that it works, for them. And so when they're looking into the flames and they're getting these, and that's how they're getting these glimpses of the future. I know, even if that's not true, George R. R. Martin, he's such a phenomenal writer that he can make anything work. So that's why I just love George R. R. Martin so much. The thing is, George R. R. Martin's been getting a lot of shade recently. He's been getting a lot of, hate thrown at him, like write quicker and stuff like this. But, none of us will ever most of us will never do, anything this great, like write a Song of Ice and Fire. It's so crazy. And I know that the only people that criticize George R. R. Martin and say that he's mediocre or that he's average are people that have not read the books. So it does not bother me when people say that, because I know you haven't read the books, because no one that's read the books can say that George R. R. Martin is average. Like he's got some of the best writing that I've ever read. A Tiger Woman? Yes, fine, 93. A Tiger Woman. That's what the World of Ice and Fire says. We don't know how true that is, or maybe it was a woman with like some crazy tattoos. We don't know what was going on in ET back in the day. It was just like a crazy place where like crazy stuff was happening. But yes, a Tiger Woman. Wow. KK Potter, you just gave me another super chat. Don't spend all your money on me, but thank you so much. Just happy to help. Love you. You have an amazing narrator voice. Thank you so much for saying that. And yeah, just look for more narrations on my channel because they're definitely coming. What is the bet that George R. R. Martin watches channels like yours and is retroactively wait, let me read that again. I got excited when you said that. What is the bet that George R. R. Martin watches channels like yours and retroactively is adding stuff to the books he likes? He has said before that he does not read theories, he does not hang out on the forums specifically for that reason, right? He says that he never wants to like go on there and see a better idea and like it and have that influence his books. So I don't think that that's what he's doing. I think he does not want to be influenced by people on the internet. And I think he already has his idea set into place. I mean, Winds of Winter, I've seen it in the flames. I've had my green dreams. Winds of Winter is almost done. And he's got everything that he wants to happen. It's getting wrapped up in this book, and then we have the closing in A Dream of Spring. I've never heard of anyone calling George R. R. Martin average. I made a video the other day, and it kind of pissed off some people that were fans of this show only, and they got mad at me, and so they attacked George R. R. Martin. But it's the internet, so that's how it works. How many real gods are there? There could be countless amounts. Varying in power. I mean, because there's lots of names, like names from Lovecraftian lore that are mentioned throughout the World of Ice and Fire. So there's lots of names, but I think there's definitely varying degrees of power and influence. Some gods, they're bound to like a single city. Some gods are bound to like single places, and then there are others that have that really far reach. Like whatever is living in the heart of darkness in a shy. It has a really far reach. It can reach, people all the way on the other side. Ooh, Teresa, he was at his publisher's last week. Oh, I'm getting tingly. Aren't there other Valyrians who came to Westeros before the Targaryens? Well, this question was asked, but I don't know if the Valyrians, they might have came, but the Targaryens were the first to, set up stop at in Westeros. They were the only ones to set up shop and, to bring dragons and to make a home out of it. There might have been other Valyrians that, traded with Westeros or, just flew around Westeros, but, the Targaryens were the first to settle there. And then before the Valyrians, there's even evidence of dragon riders there. So, okay. What do you believe Euron's motive is in gathering various priests of different faiths? Do you believe he is holding them captive for a reason? Well, the blood of priest, I think it's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice to something. It's Euron saying that, I offer you these other, gods, these servants of this other god. And it goes back to the other bit in the Forsaken where he's sitting on the throne and all the other gods are impaled upon it. It's an offering to something, he's saying that all these gods pale in comparison to you. So it's a sacrifice. And we know that, they're going to die. We know that Aeron's going to die on the prow of that ship because, we get, Daenerys, what Daenerys sees which is the corpse on the prow of the ship heading towards her. So, goodbye, the damp hair. I feel like George R. R. Martin is probably finished with The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring, but his publisher is holding back so they can milk his other works coming out, or it's in his will to be released in due time. I don't think he's done. I think that George R. R. Martin is just a perfectionist. If I can give you like a little bit of insight into, George R. R. Martin's mind and his psyche. I remember I was watching an interview. It was literally one of the best interviews that I've ever seen. It's George R. R. Martin and Stephen King interviewing each other. And, Stephen King likes to put the cosmic horror stuff in his books, too. Like, I got Freaking love that guy. Like it. Oh my god. Read it. Don't bother with the movies. Just read the book. It's so much better. And the movie's not even out, but I already know it's so much better. But they were interviewing each other, and George R. R. Martin says to Stephen King, he says, "How in the hell do you write so fast?" He's like, because sometimes I'll write an entire page and then look at it and realize that I hate it all and delete the whole thing and start over. So George is just a perfectionist, guys. He does a lot of rewrites. He wants everything to be perfect. And now you have writers like Stephen King that can just pound out books, but George R. R. Martin is not one of those. And then if you look at a book like A Game of Thrones, Stephen King is not writing books with, with the world depth being that deep. The world depth, it's like you open Game of Thrones and it's like you're falling into another realm. It's like you're really falling into another realm. There's like descriptions of, like the clothes and the freaking food and the castles and the chairs they're sitting in, how the bed that they're, laying in feels, there's like the smells, like, oh, like the scenery, like the animals that are around, the people, like, oh my God, George R. R. Martin describes everything. And it's really that immersive feeling. Like he's doing more than telling you a story. He's creating an entire world. So, it goes really deep, and, you can't do anything but respect it. Thank you so much, KKK Fighter, for another super chat. Okay, where do you think Gendry fits in, considering Blackwood's nephew is named Hendry, Derry? Well, I haven't, Gendry is one of those characters that I haven't really contemplated his bigger role in all of this as of yet. But it's definitely different than where he's going in the show, because, it definitely split off from there a long time ago when he was given to Melisandre. That's something that never happens in the book. Let's see, Book Gendry. Book Gendry is somewhere in the Riverlands. He is serving, Lady Stoneheart. He's with the Brotherhood Without Banners. If it does take a similar place, then I could see him maybe going north for some reason. But I like, oh God, see, I haven't thought about Gendry at all. See, the important thing about Gendry, I think, one thing that we have to think about and we have to consider is the fact that Gendry does have king's blood. And we know that Melisandre says over and over and over again that there's power in king's blood. So, he doesn't have any... See, that's the thing. People think that Gendry is like the one true king, but he's a bastard. He doesn't have any claim to the throne. He doesn't have any real claim to the throne. And in the books, Cersei just kind of kills off the bastards. She kills them off as, kind of pettiness. Because even though they are Robert's true sons, they can't have any claim to the throne while Robert is dead. If Robert had said, I legitimize all my bastards before he died, that would have been something else. That's what started the Blackfire Rebellion. If he had said that before he died, that would have been something else. But really, in the book, Cersei has them killed out of pettiness. So he really could never just step up and be like, I'm the king's son, I'm gonna take the crown. So that makes me think that the only real use that he'd have would be, kind of as a sacrifice. Because, we have Thoros of Myr, who's there with Lady Stoneheart. He's a Red Priestess. He operates by kind of the same rules as Melisandre. If they needed something, Gendry might be the one that gets, the Shireen treatment. But, like I said, I don't really know. Gendry is one of those characters that I have not really thought about a lot. But, we'll see. We got 2 more books to go. The books will end in the Riverlands. That's why Gendry is there. You think so? Now, if I remember correctly, Daenerys does have a vision at one point in the books where she sees herself riding her dragon and she's like breathing fire down upon the others. And I think that takes place somewhere in the Riverlands, if I'm remembering it correctly. Okay. Let's see. That's a major troll move, legitimizing everyone like that. Well, yeah, but there's precedent for it. A Targaryen king actually did something similar, and he left his sword to, his bastard. He legitimized his bastards, and, that created like an entire rebellion. And, and we're still, till this very day, we're still dealing, with, the remnants of, the Blackfire Rebellion. It was also something that contributed to the actual dance of the dragons. So, that is something, that was a decision that echoed throughout history, and it was kind of a crazy effed up decision, but, he did it because he felt like his bastard could rule better than his actual real son. I'm not saying that his bastard wasn't his real son, but the son that was supposed to rule, he thought that he could rule better than the bastard. Sansa's cliffhanger in the book. Where is Sansa at last in the book? I'm pretty sure that the last place in the book that she is with Littlefinger, and she's being set up to become Queen of the North. I'm pretty sure. KK, Cat Piter, you're spoiling me now. Gendry and Hendry, that's what I asked. If he's a dairy, that means good for Daenerys. Well, we'll see. Like I said, that part of the series is not really fresh in my mind. I haven't really prepared to talk about Gendry or Hendry really very much. So, you know what? Since you've been so nice to super chat me, hit me up on Facebook. I'll do some research tonight, and I'll look up some things and study Gendry a little bit more. And then we can have a back-to-back chat on Facebook. Just me and you, KK Pat. KK Cat Piter. Just me and you. What is your favorite chapter in the whole series? Oh god, that's very difficult. I enjoy the House of the Undying so much. I think it's just a brilliantly written chapter. It's one of the best that Martin has done. That chapter where Brienne goes to that castle and the guys are trying to kill her there, and she like lays waste to those freaking guys. Oh my god, so good. That last Brienne chapter in Feast, where she finally comes face to face with Lady Stoneheart. Like, I love the Brienne chapters in Feast. Feast is my favorite book by far. I just freaking love it so much. What else? What else is a good chapter? There's so many. The Forsaken obviously takes like a huge cake for me from the Winds of Winter. Oh my god, that chapter is so good. And if you haven't read it, I have a reading for it on my channel. It's like 30 minutes long. It's over 30 minutes long. It's a long chapter. But yeah, oh my god, that chapter is so good. So many. What else? Varamir Prologue is really good. The Dance with Dragons Epilogue blew my freaking mind the first time I read it. With Varys and him like killing Pycelle and killing Kevin Lannister. That was nuts. So those are some of my favorites. I can't name just one. No, you didn't just expect me to really just name one chapter. Can't do that. Okay. Do you think George R. R. Martin will make books based on the other parts of the world of A Song of Ice and Fire? Well, he said that he does have plans, and we can only hope that he completes A Song of Ice and Fire, and then he has said that he has plans to tell stories of other parts in that kingdom. So guys, I've been streaming for about an hour and a half now. So I'm going to take a few more questions, and then I'm going to go in about 10 minutes. So if you guys have any more questions, throw them in the chat, and I'll try and answer as many as I can before I leave. And as I said before, if you've been enjoying this stream so far, please, 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 out of the kindness of your heart, throw a like on this video. If you're just sitting watching it, it takes nothing. Just click, just look in the thing, hit the thumbs up button. It helps out the channel so freaking much. You have no idea how much leaving thumbs up on a channel helps. As far as visibility and all of that, it really gives you a boost. So please do that. And also, like I said, check me out on Twitter if you want to get in direct contact with me. And also Facebook is an even better place to get in direct contact with me because you can message me. And then also Patreon. Check out my Patreon. And, and for those of you that like my narrating voice, check out my Fiverr account if you want me to narrate something for you, because that's something that I do on Fiverr. And I can narrate the most awesome story for you. All right. And it's KK Cat Piter again. I always get stumbled up with your name. You say, it's okay, mate. I'm Aussie. Just chucking out you my money. Just chucking you money because I love you and have not helped. Well, thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated. You have no idea how greatly appreciated it is. And Julia West, thank you for your super chat. She says, don't have a question. I just want to say thank you for not acquiescing to the fanboy mania and keeping the fandom honest about what good fantasy should be. Well, thank you so much for that compliment. That's one thing I try to do, is be honest about my actual opinion of stuff. Is Jaime pretty much dead because we last seen him going to Lady Stoneheart with Brienne? See, I disagree with a few other YouTubers on this, because a lot of people think that, it's not going to end badly for Jaime, but I think that, oh my god, Jaime, I don't know how he's going to survive this one, because, because what Lady Stoneheart is going to do is she's going to make them fight. She's going to make Brienne kill him in front of her, and oh my god, if Brienne refuses to kill Jaime, Lady Stoneheart is going to have Brienne killed. She's going to have Jaime killed. She's going to have Podrick killed. Oh my god. Unless Brienne just turns and, slams her sword into the heart of Lady Stoneheart, and they make some kind of escape, because that wouldn't be the end of Lady Stoneheart. Thoros is there. Thoros would just bring her back. So I could see it going some type of way that Brienne is told to kill Jaime. Brienne refuses. She turns on Stoneheart. Obviously, Stoneheart's not going to die, but, Brienne and Jaime escape, and, they get away. That's what I want to happen, because I do want Brienne and Jaime to survive, but, it's really hard. It's going to be really hard. I don't know how they're going to play it. What do you think the end game is in the books? Also, and do you think it differs from the show? I think it's going to differ from the show. I think in the book that it ends, I think that magic leaves the world. I think that the dragons pretty much all go. I think the Iron Throne is destroyed. I think that the others return to the land of always winter. The balance is restored. They've made a pact. Again, they've decided what's right for the world. The children of the forest obviously die off. This is their long dwindling. They're the elves in the Lord of the Rings. I think that, the system falls. This feudal system falls. And then it becomes up to, the common people to step up for themselves and rebuild, their home and rebuild this kingdom. Except, they're not going to follow a king just because his father was king before him. They're done with this. It's a democracy. That's what I see happening. It's going to be like a crude democracy at first. It's not going to be like the happily ever after ending. A lot is going to be lost. A lot is going to be lost. They might even lose part of, Westeros to the others. That might be part of the agreement, that the others, get everything Winterfell and beyond, and that just belongs to them now, and that's like the new pact. So, I think that part of the kingdom could be lost. There's so much that could happen. But I don't think it's just going to end with, everyone's just happy and, the others are defeated and we can just move on. No, there's going to be a lot of death. There's going to be a lot of blood. There's going to be a lot of sacrifice. And when it's all over, the world will be changed, but it will be better. All right? Because after the end of the Long Night, the world was a broken place, and that's what's going to happen here. The world is going to be broken, but it will be better for it. All right. I'll take one more question. It's the next question I see. And better be good. Literally the next question that I see. Ah, there it is. Q&A. What do you believe Littlefinger's end game is book-wise? Oh my god. See, that's so hard. Well, obviously, what Littlefinger wants at the end of the day is power. He's setting Sansa up as the Queen in the North so that he can manipulate her through that position. He became Lord of the Vale for the power. Very early on, Tyrion offers him Harrenhal, and he sees that glimpse of power, and he's like, yes, this is what I've always wanted. That's what he wants. He wants the power, and he doesn't care who suffers. He doesn't care if the kingdom burns down to the ground. He will rise up from that chaos and gain the power. And, he came from such a small place where, these High Lords always picked on him. And he says that, he had to learn another way to play the game, through scheming. And it's all about power for Littlefinger. It's the game of power. And that's what he's doing. He doesn't have any role in, like the magic stuff. He doesn't have any role with the great, war in the North or any of that. So, his plan is going to kind of get, effed up by the real war that's happening. But that's ultimately what I think he's going to do. And, George R. Martin, Hack Martin, you've got banned. So, I don't know what you were trying to accomplish by, spamming me. But, thank you guys so much for watching. And that is the end of my live stream. Like I said, if you enjoyed it, please, guys, if you like my content and you like the stream, please leave a like. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this hour and 40-minute live stream. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for my review. And I'll see you guys on Thursday at 3:30 for my next live stream. And thank you so much for watching. Peace out.